there's a lot of emphasis placed on like Esther, and I just hear Esther, Esther, Esther like all the time in a lot of these videos. Um, but there's a lot of emphasis placed on like there's some oil treatment that Esther got, like beautification, beauty treatments for a year. And so I do want to clarify this. I'm not a hypocrite. I'm not wearing any makeup at all. I don't wear makeup. I quit that. I'm not a drag queen, and neither are you. And if you're a drag queen, then go ahead and wear makeup, I guess. But anyways, I think that we need to reclaim our time, and nobody even knows what a woman looks like anymore. Because people apparently, like men, are tricked, and they think that men with makeup on are women. So this is sad. We really need to change things, reclaim our time, our power, our freedom of mobility, freedom of movement. Anyways, so when I just keep hearing about like Esther, and then people always bring up the beautification process, I think that there's some more information that needs to be added so that we can understand. The reason the king favored Esther had nothing to do with her beauty treatments. So I'm going to see what was, I'm trying to remember the king's name. King Ahasuerus. So King Ahasuerus, some people think was King Xerxes. Xerxes was the king who married Esther. And he did not like Esther because of the beautification process. I'm trying to clarify that it wasn't because she put on oils or makeups or perfumes. I think it was oils and perfumes. That had nothing to do with why he liked her. She had the favor of God on her, and the reason that he liked her was because the favor of God. And apparently his main wife, the queen, Vashti, was disrespectful, probably not very polite. There's not much said about her, honestly, but I can assume that she had bad personality and behaved poorly. And because of this, I think he divorced or demoted her, I can't remember. So the reason that he got rid of Vashti and married Esther had nothing to do with what she looked like, because I do believe that she was gorgeous, which I'm going to look that up now. You guys need to understand where true beauty comes from. This story is often used, and people don't understand the context. This story is actually another example of how beauty treatments, perfumes, and makeup don't matter. And many people place emphasis on the wrong thing, not understanding. So I do remember that Vashti was quite beautiful, so I'm going to read this. See, so it was in the Old Testament. She was either executed or banished for refusing to appear at the king's banquet to show her beauty. She was so beautiful, he wanted to show her off to everybody. Well, guess what? Her beauty didn't save her. She was either murdered or banished for life. It had nothing to do with how beautiful she was. But she was surely getting these beauty treatments. But she had a bad attitude. And when the king asked her to come, she didn't listen to him. So let's see if there's verses in here. If there's more about it, I'm not sure. But I do know it was noted that she was very beautiful. And it didn't matter. The king dumped her. Maybe he got her in the first place because she was beautiful, but he did not keep her. And nothing says that Esther was the most beautiful. So I'm sure that she was beautiful, but see. So because of how Vashti behaved, the king was concerned he would become a laughing stock to everybody. But also, this is not a good reason to execute or banish your wife either. Where you could just have a divorce, or, just, promote another wife and she's still there. Like, there's things that could have been done. That's what I mean. Like, this king, I don't think, was the best person. I really don't. And a lot of that is just the culture that he was raised, he grew up in as the king of a pagan culture, a pagan society. It's even noted that he was possibly one of the first kings of the entire world, and they were pagan. They were polytheist. So all of the culture and the things that they did were not following the laws of God. And definitely we know he wasn't following the laws of God because he didn't think much or even really know about the Jews. And so when his servant, who he let take over his kingdom and run everything, decided to just murder all the Jews, apparently nobody was checking up on this. The Jews, they're not like the Jews today. Jews in the Old Testament, when that was written, were just God's believers. We're God's people that knew about God and believed in God. Good boy! Good boy! So anyways, you could just say believer. Or today you might say Christian. Or you might say Muslim or Christian or a Jew today. Just believer. Okay, so the king was a pagan, and he was a disbeliever. And so his customs and the way that he lived with his many concubines and wives, and throwing away and executing his wives, was what the pagan disbelievers did. And that's why he married Vashti in the first place, because she was beautiful. So he thought that's all that mattered, apparently, because she was gorgeous, so beautiful he wanted to show her off. But yet, once he got her, he realized that that really wasn't the most important thing. And then, I know that Esther was also beautiful, but, let's see. But it had nothing to do with her beauty treatment, so I'm going to explain here. So the king was a pagan king. He was a disbeliever, and that was their culture at the time. Let's see. Okay, so it tells us, the book of Esther tells us that the Persian king ruled over 127 provinces from India to Ethiopia. Okay, so this was a lot. 127 provinces, possibly king of the world at this point. I mean, maybe there's some small tribes somewhere, people in the rainforest. Let's see. Seeing if there's anything in here. I don't want to miss anything. Okay, so Haman was his advisor. And he was the one that was going to kill all the Jews. Let's see. So you see, the king, he wasn't even running his kingdom. That was too much work for him. So he handed that over to his advisor and just let him run everything. And then his advisor decided he wanted to kill all the Jews. Yeah, so you see what happens. Okay. Okay, so Ahasuerus, the Persian king of the book of Esther, being identified by the rabbis with the one mentioned in Dan as father of Darius, king of Media, and with the one mentioned in Ezra, is counted as one of the 3 kings in biblical history who ruled over the entire globe. And he was pagan, and we have a small group of Jews. A small group of Jews. So you can see why God placed favor on Esther. Now, the reason why Esther got the oils and beauty treatment, it wasn't because that made her beautiful and that made the king want her. That had nothing to do with it. I'm going to explain something that no one else has mentioned. So, each young woman's turn came to go into King Ahasuerus after she had completed 12 months' preparation according to the regulations for women, for thus were the days of their preparation apportioned. 6 months with oil of myrrh, and 6 months with perfumes and preparations for beautifying women. So there were actually rules and laws. That a woman was not allowed by law to see the king before she had 12 months of beauty treatments. Can you see now that this is a pagan this is a pagan government here? pagan, disbelieving government. I highly doubt that. You know what? The men probably had oils treatments too, honestly. I wouldn't be surprised. The king probably had oils treatments. And all his servants doing everything. Actually, I feel bad for Esther. Anyways. Let's see. Before a girl's turn came to go into King Xerxes, she had to complete 12 months of beauty treatments prescribed for the women. Okay. And this is Esther 2:12. So this had absolutely nothing to do with why the king chose her. Because every single woman had to, by order of law, do this, or they would likely be executed. We're talking about pagan disbelievers here. And Vashti was a pagan, and she was probably the most beautiful woman in all of the world. I don't know. But she got kicked to the curb because of her bad attitude. And yes, that's true. That's very good. Maybe she was even a narcissist. I don't know. But, I feel really bad. Like, the kings are probably soft, with long fingernails, and sitting there pampered, and then they just get to kill people, and then there's, 1,000 other wives. Like, I would rather be with, a poor hobo that cared about me than this. No, thank you. This sucks. So it's good that Esther has a book written after her. But I hope that she did enjoy herself and actually find love, because this is something we don't know about. There's certain things that are removed and not placed in the Bible. Certain things are not in the Bible. We know that the king loved her, but never once did it say that Esther loved him. No, because we don't know. And apparently that's not important. Now, I would imagine that she did, because that's how God works. I imagine that it was mutual. But that's not in the Bible. And there are many things that aren't in the Bible that it would really be helpful if they were still included and not removed. And I say a lot of these books are summaries. They're summarized, and we are actually losing a lot of the context and the history. So like many atheists and disbelievers reading the Bible today would read this story and be angry at God for this story. Like the king just got rid of his wife because she didn't want to go to the party. And he had thousands of other wives and whores and, and then he just let his advisor take over his kingdom and kill all the Jews. Yeah, but see, what they're not considering is that this is history and this really happened. And this is what the atheist disbelievers, this is what the polytheist pagans did. And this is not God's law. And this is why, this is why God raised a people to come and overtake them. And I bet that Esther had a lot to do with reforming and changing the rules and laws, and possibly bringing God's law into the kingdom. So we'll say that King Ahasuerus, I'm sorry if I'm saying it wrong, if it was King Xerxes, had a bunch of horrible laws, being a pagan king, and I would imagine his favorite queen, being a Jew, might have influenced him, because he said he would give her up to half of the kingdom. Well, what if what she wanted was for God's law to be restored in that kingdom? There's a lot of things that should be in that book, and they're not. But when I do hear prophets talk about Esther, they always mention this beautification process she went through. That had nothing to do with it. It was the laws of the time. This was the pagan laws that every woman had to go through a whole year of oil and beauty treatments to see the king. This is sick. This is disgusting. And this is what the pagans did. And it made no difference. It made no difference. And think about a king maybe raised in this culture and has no idea. So then imagine what can happen when a prophetess, of God is now granted half of the kingdom. Like all of the stories and things that should be in the Bible, but yet they're not there. But I think there's more to Esther. I think that she helped rule. I think she helped reform the world. And maybe not everything could be done, but probably made the rules a lot more fair. And these are things that atheists and disbelievers would have loved to read about and learn. Yes, these horrible things in the Bible were done by disbelievers. That's right. And oil and beauty treatments had nothing to do with why he favored her. And it had nothing to do with why Vashti was kicked to the curb either. And she probably deserved it, but we just don't have enough context in the Bible for it to really seem like it. It doesn't even really seem like it's something that you should get a divorce for, but she was likely executed. And probably if a woman came to the king without getting her years-long beauty treatment, she would be executed too. Okay, so people, before you keep mentioning this about Esther, keep this in mind. This was a pagan. And us believers, we don't care about such things. We judge based on the heart. So I hope you guys learned something. Let's see if there's anything else to add before I close this video out. So according to the regulations for the women, they were practiced by women in general. Like, we don't really know, this is so many thousands of years ago, but we do know, based on what is in there, that this was actually law. We don't know if mothers passed this down, or if this was, like, I guess it was done in the castle. Let's see. So I guess they, like, this would be something expensive. They would have to be in the, yeah, they would have to be in the harem for 12 months to be able, because you couldn't afford this. You would have to, like, imagine the price of these oils. Myrrh, that's super expensive. Like, you basically need to fill a bathtub up with this and, like, keep using it every day. This is insane. Okay, and there was okay. Haggai, the king's eunuch, was in charge of the harem. So keep in mind, too, the pagans also love to do is make eunuchs. This is another pagan disbeliever thing, even worse that the pagans and disbelievers did. To have male servants, they would chop off their heads. They would chop off certain other things to make them into eunuchs. No one could opt out of the treatment. And the eunuchs, good boy, who knows if they chose their job or if they were appointed by the king and didn't have a choice. And what point were they made eunuchs? Were they castrated as children, or were they castrated as adults? Guys, this is what the pagans and disbelievers did. This is horrible. Okay. Okay. So, in a dry climate, subject to drought and water shortage, people did not bathe frequently. Let's see. I'm seeing if there's any more important information here. So it was hot, it was dry, but also sometimes humid, so oils could improve the skin. Let's see. So I guess it's like lotion. They don't say if they used makeup. Makeup was around back then in Egypt. They had kohl for the eyes, henna for hair color, pomegranate juice for blush and lip stain. Let's see. What oils were used in the beautifying process? Although scripture doesn't reveal much, it is taught that the women had daily massages with olive oil, cassis oil, is that like cinnamon, myrrh oil, and honey. Well, that'd be nice. I'll take that. Okay, let's see. Oh, cassis, they're berries. Okay. So, myrrh oil is good at treating candida, yeast, and ringworm. So that's probably important if you have a harem of women sharing a bathing pool. Okay. Myrrh is derived from a resin that bleeds from a wound in the bark of the Commiphora tree. Okay, so it's resin. It's native to Arabia, of course. It's been used for thousands of years as an ingredient in perfume, incense, and wound dressing. This really was a medical treatment then, I suppose, like an antiseptic. And ancient Egyptians carried cones on their heads that contained myrrh to prevent sunburn and repel insects. Okay. Many people believe that oils are effective, safe, and desirable. The natural oils are free of carcinogens and chemicals that disturb metabolism. Oh, not allowed to say that. I'm surprised the FDA isn't coming and cracking down on the site, shutting it down. Okay. So, I think I've said all about that I need to see. But you see, Esther had to have a lot of bravery for her to go in front of the king when she hadn't been invited, was normally a death sentence, as you guys might realize. And when disbelievers and atheists read this in the Bible, they get angry at God. They get angry at God, and they don't realize the reason these ridiculous laws were in place is because it was a pagan kingship. The government was pagan. The government was not Jewish. It did not follow God. But after Esther came into power, and yes, she probably ruled right alongside, it probably did reform quite a bit. And this is the rest of the story that's missing. This is the story that's missing. Well, there sure is a lot of emphasis placed on these beautification processes. But how about, this was a global, world government that was pagan and murdering people for dumb reasons. And then let's say Esther gets into power and reforms the rules that govern the entire world and makes them fair and just. But yet that's not in the Bible. You see, guys, why I have some problems here. You might see also why, if kings were in charge of what was included and not included, or people were in charge of that could possibly be executed or punished by kings, we have a conflict of interest here. So anything showing the government being reformed would not be in the Bible. And if kings were in power and they wanted to be able to throw their wives away, they wouldn't want anything in that Bible that gave their wives power or showed that their wives influenced and they co-ruled. So that's all missing as well. But it is mentioned that King Ahasuerus loved Esther, but it does not mention that Esther loved King Ahasuerus. And this is another thing I would have liked to see in there. There's many reasons, there's many microaggressions in the Bible, and they're real ones, not the fake ones the lefties say. So I got a real problem as a chosen one. And just as Esther probably reformed government that ruled the world, us chosen ones are going to be responsible for doing the same. We need to throw away a lot of this trash that's been written under God's name. And I'm going to say, guys, honestly, there's a lot of stuff that's not from God, and it's not helping anyone. People are actually following the pagan doctrine that is written in the Bible. It's not even saying that God said he wanted to do this, but there are stories in the Bible, and it's stories about pagans. And so people that are Christian are reading that, and they are following a pagan dogma. This is ridiculous. This has to change, and so us chosen ones are stepping up. And one thing that's important is we don't judge people based on how many oils they place on their skin and the length of their beautification process. I'm a total advocate for being healthy and taking care of yourself, but not for cosmetics and beautifying, and likely the king did this just as much. Thanks for watching.